Okay. Well, thank you all for being here today. I'm Brad Barth from the University of Kansas, and we're going to talk today about the importance of identifying your values and making sure that you stay connected with them, and how I think that something that's interesting to me is how these small changes in your awareness can really impact your motivation, which in turn can change your happiness, and which in turn changes your success. And so we're going to talk about the connection between values and happiness today. There will be a couple of times where we'll have you, well, there's a worksheet that we'll fill out a little bit in here, so you'll need to, it's easiest to do it in Word, but you can adapt as needed. And I'll share that in just a hot minute. And then we'll also, there'll be a section near the end where we go into small groups. So if you can come off blank screen when you're in the small group, at least that's helpful and makes it a little more engaging for everybody. All right, so we're going to talk about wellness, and we have a small enough group. You can pop in with questions anytime you want. So first, kind of a basic definition. What are values? And so basically they're your fundamental beliefs, and they're the internal yardstick that you use when you're trying to figure out, am I doing the right thing or the wrong thing? Have I been successful in it or not? So those values, whether you know it or not, those are the things that help you make those judgments. And they're typically stable over your life, although there are things that will change as you mature or as your life changes, your responsibilities change. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So it's unlikely that there will be dramatic drifts or dramatic changes in in what your values are, but they do change. So it's something that's important to keep in mind and to look at over time. The other thing that's important is they're fundamental to who you are and how you see the world. And if you're living in accordance with them, that impacts how the world sees you as well. So it's important for you to be in balance with your values, or to live harmoniously with them. If you don't, then that interferes with your ability to be happy and to find satisfaction. Because there's sometimes a drift in the values, and also it becomes hard as we're consumed with our everyday doing and living and getting things accomplished. Sometimes our values get put farther back in our head or further back in our thought processes. And so it's good to periodically reflect on them. And I think that there are some signals that you may get that will help you. If you can identify those signals, it will help you to better understand when you should be reflecting on your values. And so a lot of times that's this feeling of being sort of tempest tossed or being rudderless in a storm, living in violation of your values. It causes this internal uneasiness, and that can lead to just this sort of subtle sense that things aren't right, to intractable anxiety and stress. And so paying attention to those, recognizing when you're starting to feel these things, and then recognizing that that's a signal that maybe you're not living in alignment with your values. And so if you could throw into the chat here, what are some of the things that you notice when you're starting to drift away from your values? So these can be signals that you get either from your mind. For me, sometimes it's that waking up at 4 a.m, and not being able to go back to sleep because I've got this thing on my mind. So sometimes that's when I recognize that there's something going on there. Other people, it can be, increased tension in your shoulders or headaches. So sensations from your mind or your body. I've lost my mouse temporarily. There we go. Great. Thank you. Good. So easily frustrated, fatigue, decreased motivation. Perfect. Somebody else there with the lack of sleep. So, Patrick, that's a great point. Lots of empathy. That can be one of the things that happens too. And as you know, that can be part of impacting our susceptibility to burnout. So what can we do about it? How can we get reconnected and with our values? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So the next question we can talk about is, well, how do you feel when you're consistent with your values? What are the things that are going on in your mind, in your body, or the feedback you're getting from other people when you are living within your values? And that'll be something you can throw in the chat as well here. Yeah, energy, fulfillment. Right. Excitement, that's great. Driven, happier. That energy that your body's using to, when you're not living in alignment with your values, that energy that your body's using to cause that stress can then be when you are living within your values or within alignment, then you have that energy for the excitement, for feeling energized. And so that's one of the things that this can help with. And as we mentioned, it helps to provide protection from burnout, just simply because you're more engaged and more involved and better able to respond to your environment. All right. One thing that we have to think about, because we have roles as educators and as teachers, and in our role as physicians too, we can sometimes recognize our patients are suffering from this. Is what can we do to help other people? And so this is a tool that we're going to use for ourselves today, but it's something also that you can bring to your learners, and in some cases to peers or to friends or to patients. So we're going to work through this exercise of identifying our values. Let me drop this into the chat. All right. So as we take a look at this values list, the things that we'll be wanting to think about is taking a little bit of time to reflect on when in your life you've been most happy, when you've been most proud. And so thinking about what are the things that were going on at that time? What was it that led to that feeling of joy or contentment? Maybe who was there? What was the environment? What was going on around you? And similarly, when you were most proud, what led to that? What were the things that led up to that feeling? How did others respond to you? And how did you respond to that moment? And then also thinking about what were the times when you were most fulfilled? So again, what were the circumstances there? And so as you reflect on that, we'll go through this through the exercise here. So the exercise, can pull it up. I'll drop it in the chat again because we've had a couple more people join. So if you're on a computer, this is much easier. You could open up the document, and as you go through the values list, think of the, you want to move quickly through the exercise, and you want to trust your instincts to pick the things that most resonate with you. And as you go through the first round, you want to pick 15 to 20 things that that resonate with you. It's important not to think too long about it. It's really one of those things where you want your kind of your first impression to just go through. And so if you highlight or bold it or change the color of the things that are in that top list, that will be helpful. And so if you're new, if you just, a few people joined in late, we're going through a list of values, which just popped up in the chat. And I'd like you to select the 15 or 20 things that most resonate with you, 20 values. As you're thinking about what your values are, looking at times in your life when you were most happy, or most proud or most fulfilled, that can help be the framework to help you figure out what your values are. And you may find as you reflect on it that you that your values may have changed, or you reflecting on it through that lens of most happy, most proud, most fulfilled, that may direct you to some different values than maybe what you came into today thinking that you might be important for you. And as you, let's see, I'll drop that list in again. Sorry if you've just joined us. We're working on selecting our top 15 to 20 values. And there's some instructions on the sheet there, so you should be able to download that and think about it. Do you want to give me a thumbs up when you've gotten through that list? We have a few more minutes to. Rich and Faith, I think that you may have got in a little late, and now you're wondering, why is everybody just standing around? Why am I sitting and talking? So we're going to, we're working on a values list, and I'm kind of waiting for the folks to complete the activity. You can go ahead and join in. The instructions are on the sheet that I just shared. And it's also something you can complete later on as we, after we're done.
Roger that.
All right, so the next step after you've gone through and picked the 15 to 20, go through that list, and you can drag them to the bottom of the page, or just pick the 5 or 6 that seem most important to you and drag those to the bottom of the page. So that you can see easily what the 4, 5, or 6 that are most important to you are. Now, you may notice that some of them are similar. So I don't know, trying to think, commitment and security, maybe that's similar to you. What you want to do is to choose between the two of them. Pick what is, if you could only do one of them, which would be most important to you, or which one resonates the strongest. So you want to have sort of 5 different values down at the bottom of the page. And so as you come up with your values, I'm going to share my poll everywhere. So you can, does that show up for you? You see the poll everywhere with the texting. So you can text in your responses there to that poll everywhere. Yeah, Melissa, that's a great point. That you can have, your values may differ between your personal and your professional life. And that's okay, and that's normal. There are hopefully some overlaps there in the ways you want to be seen and how you see your role, but certainly, and as we'll talk, it's important to know those differences, because you may find that one value that you have at work is interfering with the value that you have at home. And so that gives you the opportunity to reflect on those differences and figure out how to put that in. All right. Good, so we're getting some good. All right. Great. You can also drop them into the chat too. That's helpful. All right. So let's talk a little bit about why this helps, why it matters, what your values are. One of the things that happens with this is when you're living consistently with your values, it really just sets up the right environment for you to be able to have a growth mindset and intrinsic motivation, which, we've been talking about over the past couple of years, about how do we facilitate that in our learners. And one of the things that allows that or increases the likelihood that that's happening is that we can, by living with your values. So that's, real quickly, the growth mindset is the belief that challenges can be overcome and that you can grow and get better, rather than all the skills you were born with and they're natural and you can't do anything to make them better. And the intrinsic motivation is doing things for the joy of completing the work rather than because you want to get a good grade or because your program director is making you do it, if you're a resident, or your chair is making you do it. So the natural outgrowth from this, from being aware of your values, can really help you identify what your purpose is and why you're there. And so the benefit of understanding your purpose is it helps you to identify activities that you find value in, that it creates more likely that you're going to be able to be in a flow state or in a sense of ease of working. Builds your self-confidence. If you're consistent with your values, then you know that purpose matters, and it can help with your self-esteem. So having your top 5 values then can help you identify and make sure that you're in alignment with your purpose. So what we'll do here is I think we can just break up into 2 groups. Let's see. Holly, do we have the capability to do that?
Simeon's going to break you up into 2 breakout rooms.
Perfect. So in your breakout room, pair up or partner up, small group up anyway. And then I'll put these questions, I'll put them in the chat and you should be able to see those. So discuss those within your group, kind of share what your values are with each other, and then talk about what values you try to keep in mind as you make decisions. What are some steps that you could take to be more consistent with your values, or what steps have you taken in the past to be more consistent with your values? And spending a little bit of time thinking about what are you doing that's maybe in conflict with your values? What is it that those signals that you're getting from your body that you're not living consistently with your values? So this is your chance to kind of think about those, recognize those, and then think, well, what is one step I could take to move more in alignment with my values? And then a little bit of talking back and forth about how your values fit with your purpose. So, all right, so we're ready to.
We're going to randomly assign everyone to the rooms.
Perfect. That'll be great. Very good. Well, so what were some of the revelations or things that you found in your discussion?
I had commented that being virtual and isolated with COVID had made it hard to continue building connections, which is one of my main values, apparently. And so I was telling the group I kind of switched from building connections at conferences with people across the country to building more mentor and mentee relationships, which probably is much better for my own institution anyway. So that was an interesting thing that came up today.
Right. Yeah. Someone in our group too was the connections was a challenge, and there's been a lot of different parts of the pandemic and COVID that have hit upon our values and how they impacted us. So other thoughts about what how to get more in line with your values, or how to any changes that anybody wanted to make, or recognitions that people had?
So it occurred to me that, we all probably have parts of our jobs that are not our favorite and aren't really in keeping with our core personal values, because they're just part of working at the institution we work in, or part of our role. And, being aware of that, some of this is just required of me and expected of me, but I don't have to, I'm just doing it because it serves that value of obligation, or following a commitment that you've made, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the be all and the end all, and trying to put that on is probably not useful, and maybe contributes to burnout if it's truly against your personal core values, and finding ways to sort of put that in the box that it belongs in, which is, this is I'm only doing this because it's an obligation, and I'm not going to try and pile too many of these things on. One of the other members of our group, I don't know if she'll want to share, but I really liked what she said, is she realized that she was focusing more on one of her values in her activities and not really on the others. And I think that she had some good insight in that. So I don't know if she wants to speak to that, but I thought that was great to see that she'd had that insight from this discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was me. Thank you for mentioning
All
that.
told.
Yeah. So I just realized that I was focusing on one activity and not doing all of the others, and kind of gave me some insight into why I may be feeling discontent or unfulfilled, and maybe a little imbalanced, and just realizing that I'm not doing all that I need to do to truly feel well and content.
Yeah, fantastic insight. Thank you, Faith. Well, and Pamela, what you mentioned is similar to something that we talked about in our small group, was that some of these things we have to do, a way of reframing it so that it's not so bad, is that recognizing that this thing I have to do now is in service of me being able to achieve this value later. So like maybe right now I'm not able to be a leader, or I'm not able to have the flexibility that I want, or whatever the value is, but recognizing that if I gain this skill, or this credibility, or if I gain this, I get this task done, then I'm better able to serve this later value, or this bigger value, in a more effective way. So yeah, that's great. Congratulations, Dr. Diane.
That was supposed to be a direct reply.
Oh, sorry. Well,
Not
it's
to
still good
everyone.
though. I mean, that's exactly the thing, is to, we're at my institution, we do our annual faculty assessment in January. And so that's kind of the time frame where we want to really have people do a little reflecting and thinking more about what their values are. And that's the time to start putting in those steps of, is there somebody that I could just ask? Do I need to let somebody know that this is a value to me, and that I want to be more, being able to use this value more? So, one of the other things I think that's was on our slide that I think is important to reflect on is, what am I doing that's working in conflict with one of my values? And then a step you can take to be more in line with that, to move more in line with your value. So other thoughts things people want to contribute?
I think these kind of sessions are really good because like having that opportunity to just explore and think existentially, like what is my purpose? Why am I in this job? And what do I want to get out of it in the next 5 to 10, 15, however long years? And how does that work with the rest of my life too? And that's going to necessarily evolve over time as people evolve in their personal lives too. And so just being, having that awareness, it doesn't have to be, the same over time.
Right. Well, that's a perfect segue to move back into to our slides here. But so we talked a little bit about kind of our discoveries within this framework. But I think exactly what Dr. Dine was saying is that it's important to think about this periodically. And so some way of reminding yourself to reflect on this, and whether it's every 4 months, or I think those natural markers like for your annual assessment or getting ready to meet with your chair for the year, or those other things. New Year's is kind of a traditional period of reflecting and thinking about it. But setting a reminder, and I use a service called followupthen.com. So you just send them an email at 4 months, followupthen.com, and they'll send you your email in 4 months and say, hey, you promised yourself you would think about this at this point. Or if setting a reminder in your phone, or Evernote's another way I set those kind of reminders to sit down and think about when you want to review your values. I think one of the other things that's important to remember to put this into action and make it work for you is to listen to those signals, trust your instincts. Sometimes it's hard for us to key into that inner voice, but being willing to trust that, recognizing that those signals that you're not happy doing what you're doing mean something, and you need to get a chance to reflect on that. And then I think being compassionate in challenging yourself to move into alignment with your values. So it's you want to give yourself a challenge and urge yourself to be better, but in a compassionate way. So in summary here, it's important to live through your values, to understand your values and to apply them in your living, because it helps you fulfill your purpose. It helps to maximize your happiness. And then it facilitates that growth mindset and intrinsic motivation that will help you achieve success in your goals. So that's the summary of our topic today. I really appreciate you all being here. We're going to put a longer form that's a little more detailed of the values list in the as a handout for the meeting. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to address them.
Can I say something? So
Please do.
There's a concept called the growth edge, where you're kind of at that edge of where if I got to push past my zone of safety and comfort level in order to grow and evolve. And it's a really exciting place to be, but it's also really scary. And I think when thinking about evolving one's career, trying something new, stepping into a leadership role, stepping into a space that is unfamiliar, but it's something that is in keeping with your values, and hence you want to do it. That's where the magic is, right?
Exactly.
The struggle is the point, right? That's part of living.
Yeah. So those are the times when you grow. So through those challenging moments. So, well, very good. Well, if there's any questions or any thoughts later, I'm happy to have you email me. I assume my email will be in the instructions. I'll put it in the chat here. So, but thank you all for being here, and thank you for playing along with values identification. And hope to see you all at SAM in New Orleans.